Well, greetings once again, poetry lovers. And I'm going to do a little unpacking of Charles Simic's poem, Late September. You should have already watched the presentation on imagery. And in that presentation, I talked to you about image types. And these are the images that correspond with with our senses. So we have visual and auditory and tactile, meaning touch, and olfactory, meaning smell, and then gustatory, meaning taste. And then, some people will add in kinesthetic imagery, meaning image of movement and so forth. But what this presentation is going to be dealing with is what I'll call either categorizations or classifications of image. Okay, so let me read through this, and then I'll tell you what I mean. Late September by Charles Simic. The mail truck goes down the coast carrying a single letter. At the end of a long pier, the Board Seagull lifts a leg now and then and forgets to put it down. There is a menace in the air of tragedies in the making. Last night, you thought you heard television in the house next door. You were sure it was some new horror they were reporting. So you went out to find out, barefoot, wearing just shorts. It was only the sea sounding weary after so many lifetimes of pretending to be rushing off somewhere and never getting anywhere. This morning, it felt like Sunday. The heavens did their part by casting no shadow along the boardwalk or the row of vacant cottages, among them a small church with a dozen gray tombstones huddled close, as if they too had the shivers. Okay, so I'm going to invite you again to maybe you can just pause this the video here and just look at the poem and read it over again to yourself. Maybe make a couple of notes as to what you think might be happening in this particular poem. I think what I'll probably do, I haven't done it yet, I may have made available to you a Word document copy of this poem, so that if you wanted to download it, print, and then you can make some notes. So unlike the poem that I walked you through during week one regarding that hybrid sonnet that Robert Frost put together in his poem The Investment, this is an example of what we'll come to know as open form or free verse poetry, meaning that it doesn't follow a particular rhyme scheme. It doesn't have a particular pattern of rhythm. Okay, the things that are holding this together are the movement of the poem, and also in this case, it's a series of images. So when I asked you to pause and then look at this thing, what I wanted you to do is to get a sense of like what's happening in the poem, like what's gotten the poet to present a speaker who is musing on something. Okay, so in a way, this is something like a narrative. All right, I mean, as was The Investment to a certain degree, but here, the things I'm gonna point out to you have to do with the image classification or categorization. In this case, it's images of decline. Okay, images of sort of isolation, singularity, singleness. All right, so let's take a look at the opening line. And it's weird because in this collection, The Voice at 3 a.m., Charles Simic is a marvelous poet, has won a Pulitzer Prize and was a Poet Laureate of the United States. So was Robert Frost for that matter. So let's take a look at how he opens. The mail truck goes down the coast carrying a single letter. Okay, so this is what he starts us with. So we have that image of decline of going down the coast, not up the coast, down the coast, carrying a single letter. Well, I don't know about you, but I've already gotten my mail today, and I had 3 pieces of mail just today. Okay, I mean, it was all rubbish, but nonetheless. Okay, so when you see a mail truck going down the street, you generally think that that thing is loaded with parcels and letters and magazines and bills, of course, and all that kind of stuff. But notice he does a couple of interesting things. One, a single letter. So here's this this image of singularity. We've got the down. Okay, this is decline. All right, decline. And this is the singularity. All right, so we have two kinds of images at work here. Notice we tend to think of, it's not that, has the mail truck come yet? But we tend to think, sorry for the sexist language, but this is just sort of the way it is shaped up. Has the mail carrier, has the mailman, as a kid, has the mailman come yet? Has the mail come yet? Okay, so he's removed the human element in this delivery of the mail by making it just the truck, okay? Now, at the end of a long pier, the Board Seagull lifts a leg now and then and forgets to put it down. All right, so I'm not a great artist, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you kind of what this is supposed to look like here. So if these are like the pilings, right? So let's say we got our little pilings here, and then here is the boardwalk, and the way out here, like at the vanishing point. Okay. So what happens? It goes, okay, and goes to a vanishing point. And like I said, I'm a craft drawer. Okay, so these would be kind of wide apart, and then as they move on, they get closer and closer and closer together, right? Okay, so from an artistic perspective, the vanishing point is where the elements of the visual scene all converge way off in the distance. Yep. So what I want you to notice here is, and again, my crappy drawing. So there's our seagull out there. Okay. One seagull. He lifts a leg now and then and forgets to put it down. Okay? So here is yet another, and notice, it's not, so we're talking about word choice here. It's not a board seagull, it's the board seagull. So this tells us that, or suggests that this place that he's talking about has only one seagull. Now look, I mean, I'm not a fan of the beach, and I go there as infrequently as possible because I can't stand sand and getting sunburned and all that kind of thing. When's the last time you saw one seagull? I mean, like never. Those things those travel in giant packs like wolves, and God help you if you look away from your sandwich on the beach because it will be swarmed by these seagulls. And yet here, this place is so remote and small and like isolated and scary, as he suggests with the word menace in the penultimate line in the stanza, okay, that there's only one. Okay, one seagull, the board seagull. So here, the singularity again, lifts a leg. So he's standing on one leg, right? And we're back to singularity. Lifts a leg now and then and forgets to put it down. So here we are again with the image of decline, except in this case, the doggone seagull he forgets to put it down. It's that he's so, perhaps paralyzed by the isolation of the scene, okay? There was a menace in the air of tragedies in the making. This is a fabulous turn to happen this early on in the poem. So the speaker is already priming the pump for what he thinks about this scene. He's scared by this scene, okay? The word menace and tragedies. So if we were in class together, I used to, where I taught before, I had, believe it or not, a steak knife in my drawer, and also had a hammer that were props. So I would come toward a student with the steak knife in my hand. Okay, so I can carry a steak knife in a way that is non-threatening, right? I mean, I can just like I'm delivering it to you in the event that I'm a waiter in a restaurant. But if I come and I menace you, that means that I'm doing what? Like I'm pointing that thing at you, and I'm not pointing it at your left wrist. I'm like pointing it at vital organs, maybe your throat, maybe your gut, something like that, right? Menace, the suggestion that something bad, dire, potentially fatal is going to happen. And then tragedy is the highest level of misfortune, right, that can occur. So, and it's tragedies in the making. So he's asking us then, the poet is asking us to anticipate something bad fitting to happen. Something bad, okay? So, last night you thought you heard television in the house next door. So this is really interesting because it's not, I mean, on one hand we can think of it as the poet, a speaker is now, in the first stanza, he is addressing seemingly either no one or us as readers. But now there's the suggestion that there's a person that's made an appearance, okay? You thought you heard television in the house next door. Now, I don't know about you. I'm here in a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. If I could hear piano coming from the house next door, I mean, I'm probably, the house next door to me is probably, I don't know, 25 steps away. And the one behind me is a little further than that. The ones across the street are, of course, way further than that. So either the television is playing super loud because we've got a person that's hard of hearing in there, or it is so unbelievably quiet, okay, and isolated that we can hear television, right? Eek. Okay, you were sure it was some new horror they were reporting. So the they is what? Like the news people, okay? But they is this, sort of non-specific, and again, it's an us versus them dichotomy that the speakers or the poet is establishing through that speaker, okay? So you went out to find out. Find out what? Like, what's the horror they're reporting? Because it's better to know than not know, right? I mean, this is what fear is all about, isn't it? It's the unknown. The thing that you imagine is under the bed, okay, the thing that you imagine is going to happen to you, much worse than the thing that actually happens. So like if somebody says, I got bad news for you, it's like, tell me now. Okay, you want good news or bad news? Give me the bad news. I mean, right? I mean, you want to know so that your imagination is not sitting there, running rampant, like apparently this person that the speaker is referring to does. So you went out to find barefoot, wearing just shorts. I mean, this is a person that is energized by fear. So if it's, whether the speaker is male or female, and the person that's going out to find out is male or female, I mean, you've got to think that it's much more radical if it's a woman who is so insistent on finding out what's going on that she would go out, with only shorts and barefoot. I'm not even putting shoes on. I got to go find out now, okay? But it's nothing on the television. It wasn't television. It was only the sea sounding weary. Listen to all that music. It was only the sea sounding weary. Like we're terrified. After so many lifetimes, not so many years, not so many decades, not so many centuries, not so many millennia, it's lifetimes. So he makes it personal there, which makes it even more terrifying, okay? Of pretending to be rushing off somewhere and never getting anywhere. So the suggestion here, the ocean makes an appearance, or the sea makes an appearance, not only in the first stanza, okay? And think about, if you're at the edge of the ocean, just the expanse of the sea, and you as a little person there, and just think how insignificant a single person, or a single seagull, appears, okay, when contrasted with the expanse of the sea. And so now it's the sea sounding weary after so many lifetimes of pretending to be rushing off somewhere and never getting anywhere. The idea that the tide comes in, the tide goes out. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. So this is the sort of cyclical nature of life, and maybe if we buy what the poet is suggesting through a speaker, that like this repetition of stuff is all you have to look forward to. Ooh. Okay, now, third stanza. This morning, it felt like Sunday. So think of all the connotations that you have with Sunday, okay? If you are of Christian persuasion, then Sunday for you is we go to church, we renew our commitment to the faith. Okay, it's all these marvelous things. We typically don't have anything to do on Sunday. We're not supposed to be working if you're following the Ten Commandments, and this kind of thing, right? So it felt like Sunday. The heavens, not God, the heavens did their part by casting no shadow along the boardwalk. Meaning what? So we gotta step in and you have to imagine what's happening here. And so what we're imagining is happening is that there's no sun out, right? So it's gray. Look at the if we want to look at color imagery as another image type to take a look at is color imagery. So with the mail truck, the mail truck's generally like what? White, red, blue, maybe. Okay. Seagull, kind of a dirty white. Okay, with some tinge of black. Okay. The long pier, we think of darkness. We think of the sea as being slate-colored granite, dark. Okay. The whole business with last night, so it's dark out. So if you want to talk about an image of decline relative to the light in the scene that he's describing, okay. And again, the sea makes an appearance. Now we have the auditory image of the sea sounding weary to add into the visual elements that he suggested for us. Okay. So the heavens did their part by casting no shadow along the boardwalk. So when we think of shadows, it's an absence of them, but the fact that he's mentioned it brings to mind the darkness. And it's clearly the mind of the speaker here is kind of dark at the moment. All right? So no shadow along the boardwalk. So here we are again, back when we think about the pier and the boardwalk. So boardwalks are typically what? They are going to be populated with people. So because the poem is late September, we're in a season of decline, okay? We're at the end of the month. September marks the beginning of the season of decline. So we're out of summer, right? And we're heading into the darkness of winter, yes? And so now, or the row of vacant cottages, nobody in them. Cottages are small, so we have this image of sort of claustrophobia, the smallness that is sort of pressing in on us. Okay, among them a small church. So now see how he's narrowing the lens of the poem for us. So from morning, the heavens, so our view is up into the sky. Now we're looking down toward the boardwalk, the row of vacant cottages, the small church, and now we're behind the church, a dozen gray tombstones. I mean, how small is this community, right? I mean, I've been to many churches that have, graveyards behind them, right? And generally we're talking about, hundreds of tombstones representing the deaths of people over, centuries and centuries. Not so here, because here it's a dozen gray. So here he finally names a color, and it's not a great one. Gray tombstones, and then he personifies the tombstones. Okay, he personified and gave, anthropomorphized the seagull by calling it board. He also anthropomorphized or personified the sea by its sounding weary, because the ocean can't get weariness and tiredness are different, right? Weariness is tiredness over a long period of time. Yep. Okay, so now we're personifying the tombstones that are emblematic of death. Yes, the final resting place. Okay, as if they too had the shivers. So who else has the shivers? Well, of course, it's you and me. We have the shivers at how lonely and desolate and horrific is this place. So what Simic is tapping into is the idea that human beings are social creatures. We crave the companionship of others. The only hope that he gave us in this poem was the fact that there was at least the speaker had someone in his life there in the house, hearing the television coming from but then that person left him, like bolted from the house to see what was happening next door. So do you see all these, how all these things are playing together to create a sense of something in the poem? And the thing they're creating is the sense that the poet is just musing on how the worst thing to happen to a human being, okay, and we all know this because of, you know what, COVID, is being alone, is being isolated and away from other people. So what I want you to see is not only all the things that are happening, like the central impulse of this poem. Okay, the central obsession is the idea that it stinks to be alone. It's not. It doesn't just stink. It's tragic. It's menacing. It's terrifying to be alone without human companionship. And so, what I want you to take a look at is all the elements that Simic put together to make this point manifest in the poem. Okay, so that's it for now. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out and I'll do my best to answer them. All right, peace.